Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of Another Pass, where we talk about movies and all the struggles that go into making them. If you like it, check out the whole podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, I was definitely thinking about your show a lot while watching today's movie, because there is a lot of socio-political conversation going on in it. I don't know necessarily where the movie lands on some of these things, but there's some spots where it's like, okay, there's some biting
very
satire.
1970s political for sure.
Oh yeah. There's an energy crisis, damn it.
Yeah.
But I was definitely thinking about that approach to monster movies in a way that I don't always do. I mean, and some movies are just like fun, like Kong vs. Godzilla is like, there's a fucking axe, dude.
There's not like a deep political message behind Reptilicus. You know what I mean?
But it is really fun to look at those things. And it's interesting that there's this whole like cross-pollination of monster movies going from like King Kong is, this big breakthrough in like claymation and so forth, and being like a worldwide phenomenon, and that kind of triggering like a genre shift in that regard. Obviously, acknowledging the fact that like giant monster stories predated movies, and that King Kong just was one of the big first, like, here's a big fucking monster. But it's interesting to now then like see like, all right, well, we've had all these movies, like it's become a genre unto itself at this point. It's been a long time, but like let's do an American-made kaiju movie in fucking 1976.
Yeah, what a weird time, because it's not exactly like that was in vogue, and I don't think that you could have gotten away with a movie with this kind of budget and this kind of power behind it in the 70s without it being King Kong. Like, it needed to be King Kong to make this movie, I think.
Yeah, I kept thinking about how like there's such a pedigree sort of at this, like again, the original King Kong was such a huge blockbuster of a movie, and you look at this 70s remake and like there's so many fucking huge stars in this movie. Like, and sure, it's all early in their careers, but it's just a fucking dynamite cast. It's, like huge production going into it. Obviously, movies cost more now, so the $24 million budget doesn't sound that impressive, but like it's shockingly high in production values for what it is.
I'm pulling up the inflation calculator.
But it's not just inflation, because it's also movie budgets have just kind of ballooned in a way that coming from the 90s into the 2000s, like just the summer blockbuster model has just made everything more expensive.
This would have been the equivalent of $125 million in today's money. So I mean, that's actually really impressive then, because that's blockbuster money today. And that's without the fact that, like you said, the whole Hollywood studio model has really exploded blockbuster budgets upwards on average.
Yeah, like we recently talked about the original Halloween as a 5th episode on this show, which is where we look at movies that had challenges that they overcame, as opposed to like how can we speculate on how you could have like overcome challenges. And Halloween is infamously just like this micro budget, but we were comparing like other movies of the same year, which was 1978, so only 2 years later, and like even comparing, like 24 million was like right in line with most of the really expensive movies, aside from Superman, which was a cutting edge, like game breaking, this is how we can do these new types of special effects movie, and that one was still under 100 million.
Yeah, the original Alien in 1979 was 11 million, so again under half.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like you can see it in some of these things. Like the big selling point when they were talking about this movie was like, oh, we could do an animatronic King Kong. And obviously that didn't really work out. But like there are spots, but it's,
What? You didn't enjoy the leering? The weird faces? You didn't enjoy that? This movie made me deeply uncomfortable at moments. I would like to get that
uncanny.
out. Like deeply, deeply down to the core of me uncomfortable. Like I was like, this feels wrong. But I mean, I get it. Like someone controlled an animatronic finger that felt her up. It was weird, but it was cutting edge, and It looks okay, I guess. I mean, creepy, but like it looks good for what it was, if that's what they wanted it to be, which I think they did.
Yeah, I think it almost works in its favor that the animatronics have that uncanny creepiness to them. Like nowadays, when you look back on it, and it's good work. It's excellent special effects work that just almost doesn't hit. But I think the whole movie is going for a slightly more uncomfortable take on King Kong to begin with.
Absolutely.
Well, uncomfortable is definitely a good word for a lot of this movie.
No, like absolutely. Like this movie, like King Kong has a lot of issues, and HR definitely needs to talk to him, but that's besides the point.
Like this movie is it's not intentionally, but absolutely racist in the way that so many, like, that's just a thing you're going to run into with King Kong. Like, that's a problem that people are not good at overcoming with a King Kong story, but it is intentionally uncomfortably horny in a way that is like, hitting real bad.
Yeah.
Well, and when those two tastes come together, it's a real drinking orange juice right after brushing your teeth kind of exposure right there.
Honestly, like I actually had to I paused.
Oh yeah.
So when the natives basically offered 6 women in exchange for the white woman, and I was like, oh my God, I need a pause. I need a moment. I need a second. It just 6 of them is the value of one of her, and I just cannot take this white supremacy talking point.
Yeah, it was really colonial, and like, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, yeah, that's part of King Kong and whatnot, but it's also 1976.
Right. Racism was a national sport.
Yeah.
Remember, if you like that clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.